Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with Kell Nielsen. He's the CEO of Manhattan Corp. It's a relatively new gold exploration story on the ASX assets in New South Wales. He talks through their plans for this year. If you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversation, their plans, and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com. Do go and have a look. If you also will find company reports on there, detailed analysis from experts from around the world on a variety of companies and commodities. There's training videos on there to help you with your diligence. There's also summaries of other interviews that we've done just to save you a bit of time. And of course, if you want to join a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, safe environment without trolling, abuse, or judgment, go to cruxinvestor.com/club. And of course, we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like. It's be much appreciated. Leave your comments below. We'll get back to absolutely everyone. And if you want to see what we talked about today, take a look in the description below. Kell, how you doing, sir?
Very good.
Good to have you on the show. So we've got another news story. We've not met before, spoken before, so I'm looking forward to this one because you boys are kind of just newish. We'll call you newish. So where are you? Where in the world are you?
So we're running a project called Tibooburra. It's located in the far northwest corner of New South Wales. Beautiful dry part of the world. It's about 300 kilometres north of Broken Hill at the most, and probably about 120 kilometres in the southern part from Broken Hill. All sealed road all the way up there, and mobile service to boot. So really great little area to be at the moment.
Fantastic. New South Wales, that's where my family are from. So are you based there or elsewhere?
So Manhattan's based out of lovely Perth in Western Australia.
Gotcha.
At the moment. So, but in normal times, it's quite an easy day flight just into Broken Hill and then straight up the road. So it's a well-serviced mining city in the south. And it's a great place to be and it's a great place to work.
Okay, fantastic. Hey, well, look, you've kind of given us a little bit of overview of where it's at. Can you give us just a 1 minute overview of what the company is and what you're trying to do, and then I'll pick it up from there.
Yeah. So Manhattan acquired the project last year, April last year, and in that stage we've kicked off 3 drill programs in 2020, which has seen basically the share price move from about 0.5% to over 2.5 to 3 cents now, and our market cap significantly improved. But what the project was an extremely unique opportunity that was brought to us by us from Jens Volko, who's ex-Regis Resources, exploration manager for there. And he had this privately with quite a few other groups. And they walked into this place as a emerging orogenic gold system, which had lots of historic gold mining. It was the last goldfields that were discovered in New South Wales. And it had very, very little exploration done on it today. And it was fairly unknown. Like, I actually went to university in New South Wales, and we didn't look past Broken Hill, so we never looked up there. And it just emerged from that. So they stitched together, and because it was privately held, it just never went anywhere. So we did the acquisition. Jens came on board as a director, and it's a simple thing where we put together the orogenic gold belt. We control over 200 kilometres of mineralised structure within the region and about 2,000 square kilometres of exploration ground with not a lot of greenfield waste in that area as well. And it's a simple system. It's what Jens did at Duketon, which was walk in, you start working up the structures, and hopefully you walk out, similar to what Regis did, 8 million ounces later. And that's where we sort of sit. So we started last year and we're getting some good results from that.
Simple as that. Walk in, 8 million ounces later, walk out. It'd be nice. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
We're only just starting. But
Exactly. That's what I want to get into, Kell, is understanding your plan for delivering that, okay? Because that's, as you say, not much work done there. There's a bit of drilling you did last year. What did you, about 8,000 metres or so? So talk to me about what information you had before you kind of put the asset and your shell together.
So when we walked in there, the amount of drilling was probably limited to less than 3,000 metres of drilling,
right.
Which is run primarily as some small scale RAB and RC and diamond work over probably about a decade. And it showed potential, especially around some of the old mining centres. And it never sort of got followed up, and it just sat there being underfunded and and not really moving for a while. So when we moved in, it was a pretty simple thing. Is we see that the project needs drilling. It's not conceptual in nature. It just needs to be drilled, a lot of it, and that's what we've been doing since. So today we've drilled probably about 15,000 metres last year. We're looking at increasing that to 30,000 metres the first half this year plus, and just basically chasing the obvious gold targets that exist in the northern area at the moment. So and then start moving through to the southern corridor as we can.
So I mean, obviously there's about finding contained metal in the ground and orogenic. There's lots of orogenic projects around the world. So how do you come at this? Like you're going to drill, which is great. So you've set yourself a budget. I mean, so you raised some capital. Talk to me about how the plan and how you're going to fund it.
Well, at the moment, so the drilling that we're doing at the moment, we ended up with about 3.4 million in the last quarter. On the current program, we're spending about 2 million of that. That leaves us about 1.4 in the kitty. Obviously, being an exploration company, you're going to look at funding at some stage, but at the moment we're funded. And the results we're getting, we actually see us re-rating often to access those capital markets going forward.
Yeah.
So there is money available to us, but we just haven't really hit the go button on any of that because we're quite happy where we're sitting.
Right. So it's a very positive gold environment, obviously, especially in Australia with exchange rates, etc. So you've got to time this right. I mean, mining is as much about timing it above the ground as it is drilling under the ground. So what pace are you deciding to move forward at? I mean, what are you looking to try and discover before you go and raise more capital?
Oh, look, we've got a two-pronged approach at the moment. We're still aggressively drilling the area known as New Bendigo, and that's still growing as a size and a resource. We're focusing on the high-grade aspects at New Bendigo, where we're drilling 30 metres at 4 in that previously near surface, and that included 5 metres at 20. We've got another thing where we've got 7 metres at 18, pretty shallow as well, and there's a whole lot of high-grade hits in there. So that's one thing that we're growing. We're trying to grow that higher-grade components to the New Bendigo mineralisation. And up the road from New Bendigo, there's another thing which it's actually like a clone of the New Bendigo gold workings, and we call it actually clone because of that. And that's never been drilled. So we've got some focus on that coming in too. So it's about expanding the size at the moment to then maybe bring on the resource because we haven't delineated it's still open in all directions. And so we haven't delineated the size yet. The other thing is external to those areas, there's still old mining areas which haven't been touched, and we need to go and do some further, more preliminary exploration on those things and maybe get some drilling rigs on that. So there's the old Pioneer working systems up to the far north, which is about 20 kilometres north of New Bendigo. And that's an old mining area with an old stamper battery system located on it. And that had some good drilling previously, which hasn't been really followed up as well. So lots of potential, and that's just in the northern area.
Yeah.
So,
but see, when I was reading through, so when we're doing the research here, we're seeing all these like headline grabbing numbers, these sort of high grade numbers, which in orogenic, can happen, but it's the lower grade bulk stuff also helps. So what are you starting to see there? Because these high grade eye catching headlines are one thing to kind of get people attracted to the story, but the reality of what you're trying to build is probably something a little bit more fundamental than that. So what do you think it is that you're trying to build here? So
to give you a good example of that is the New Bendigo drilling that's been done today. So we went back in and did some diamond drilling just in late last year. Those holes are in the lab now waiting assay. The aspect of that was what we see at New Bendigo within the main zone at New Bendigo. It's 600 metres long. It's 4 lodes. It's 5-10 metres wide depending on which way you cut it. But it has an overall low grade aspect of about 1.5 grams of shallow oxide near thing. But then it has which I feel is quite similar to these orogenic systems, such as what you see in Newfoundland and down probably in Fosterville and everything else. These multi-zonal epigenic orogenic systems and what you sort of see is there's a high grade component to that. So, and that's generally a sort of a cross-cutting structure that comes through, and that was the target of the diamond drilling last year. And those holes look quite good, but obviously we're waiting those assays. And that will bulk up that lower grade envelope, which will give us our tonnes, and then we'll move forward and hopefully we'll get the ounces with the increase in grade. But it's still growing. So we've been drilling on the same system about 4K south of it. We're drilling a bit further to the north of it, and we're just going to keep following that up as well. So it'll just keep growing.
Okay, so you've not spent much money to date. You're going to have to raise some capital at some point, I assume later this year. Because again, coming back to my point about you kind of got to hit these cycles right and get the money while it's there. And the money at the moment is going to be cheaper. It's going to be relatively cheap for you. So again, how do you come at the market? What do you think you need to go back to the market with when you're raising capital from this drilling that you're doing and you're still going to carry on doing?
Oh, look, we're funded for this initial bit, and then we're obviously going to see when the data starts coming through, we're going to see the step up in activity, and that's going to be where we're going to need funding coming through. And we don't see that as being late this year. We probably see that being more towards the first half of this year. There's no rush for it, but we will bring it forward because we're going to be busy and we're going to need to spend, and that is really a result-driven process that we're just following through.
Right, and you've got a reasonably large land package there, and you've mentioned multiple targets already, and you're a geo, right? You're going to get excited about the technical here, but you're also CEO. Do you remember? You're also CEO. So you've kind of got that balance right between, having a little amount of information on a lot of targets or honing in on something that you can come back to market with. So again, just talk through your plan, how you expect to, get into this first half of this year before you go and raise capital.
Yeah. So the northern part of the package is obviously much more drill ready. So it's more costly to explore and everything else because obviously having the machines out there, we're expending more money. As we move south, there's a lot more preliminary work that needs to be done. I sort of equate it back to Western Australia in the 1980s. Pretty simple thing. You went out there, you did your geochemistry, you got some anomalies, you went through with some cheap geochemical drilling, and then you came in with the RC rigs, and therefore then you got a resource and you mined it. It's pretty simple sort of stuff. We're not looking at deep conceptual targets undercover where, it's $300,000 for a hole or something like that. We can go and drill a hell of a lot for $300,000 and test it. And if it doesn't come up, we move on to the next one. And that's where we see the southern area. It's got a low spend footprint for probably the first 6 months of this year. And then as we build those things up, then we'll move that more into the drilling, and that's where that financing would probably come in as well. But the north, it's going to keep us busy.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned in the PowerPoint, some of the southern targets you want to look at to expand the footprint, etc. So it's all good. Tell me a bit about you, Kell. I mean, where were you before? Is this your first gig as a CEO? Have you built companies up before? No.
Oh, look, I've spent, I hate to say it now, 30 years as a geologist. So I've been around for a bit. My latest sort of stuff is I ran for Placid Dome. I ran all the Wallaby drill out work and feasibility stuff for them. And that was over 7 million ounces in just under 2 years that we pushed out there at Wallaby. And from there, I've moved into I was in Snowden Consulting for a while to BHP and a few others. And then I stepped out with Peak Resources as an executive director. And Peak, we took offshore. So they now have, and we generated at that time the Nguala Rare Earths project in Tanzania. So I think it's the largest undeveloped rare earths deposit in the world. So moving forward, and from there I went up into Mongolia as managing director for Voyager Resources, gold and copper in Mongolia. And then during that stay, we also was part of the team that listed Hunu Coal, which was sold to Banpu for $500 million and also another company called Haranga Iron, which didn't do as well, but got sort of caught up with the downslope of the iron ore. So, and from there I was in, so highlight probably I was in a couple of other countries, including Myanmar and a few others, but in Senegal as part of the team to put together the assets that now sit in Chessa, CHZ, and they're doing quite well at Jumba Sud. So before taking on this gig.
What's happening with John Seton, and what's his involvement or role?
Oh, John's still on our board. So obviously with the restrictions of travel and everything else, since the acquisition, it's been very hard to get him over, but we're still moving forward. So, yeah.
And what was I saw an announcement he was offloading some shares. I mean, should we read anything into that?
No. So the announcement for John was more that he was in charge. It's going back a little bit from recollection. He was in charge of a trust, which he was the trustee of, and then that he became he was off that as a trustee. So therefore, he was no longer controlling those shares. So it was more about a control issue rather than a sale issue. So yeah.
Worth understanding. Okay, the optics didn't look good. I was like wondering what was happening.
No. When I saw it, I went.
we should word that differently. Yeah. Okay. Well,
it wasn't well worded, and unfortunately, it sort of went out when I was actually in the bush drilling, so I didn't see it.
Right. So obviously hard to get him there. So where is he? What's he at now? I mean, obviously working remotely is not too difficult these days, but it'd be better to have him on the ground, right?
Oh, look, it'd be great to get all our directors on the ground and everything else and stuff like that. So, but, Jens has been putting a fair bit of work into us. And obviously Marcello keeps us pretty tight on the purse strings and sort of make sure that we're sort of doing the right thing.
Now, are all the directors focused on this project, or do people sit on multiple boards and get distracted by other things?
So this is my main thing at the moment. It's Jens's. Jens only sits on this board, and this is all he's doing at the moment. Marcello, as chairman, has probably a few little hats in other things as well, but has a fair bit of time and focus for that. And then we've got a secondary team in the background, such as my exploration manager, is probably 25 years experience as a geologist working on it. And we're also looking at building that team to start pushing some more work through as well.
Right, okay.
This year.
Were you happy enough with the reaction in the market to your story? Because you mentioned at the beginning you were as low as half a cent.
Look, I think we'll have a re-rating this year when we start really getting that information out. The half a cent is when we did the deal and prior to the first round of drilling, and then we've spiked and everything else with the gold price and a few things. But where we're sitting. Look, there's comparisons in Victoria which are much, much higher than ours. And obviously we'd like to be probably compared to them, seeing we're in a better jurisdiction, we have better ground and everything else, and probably some better hits than some of those. But the market is what it is, I guess. So we'll just work with that and keep quietly doing what we're doing and getting our focus into the ground and keep the project moving.
Just don't quote Fosterville at me. The amount of companies that come on here and go, we're going to.
I'm not going to quote Fosterville. Fosterville is very nice, but it is very high grade. It is small, but it's very nice and high grade. Look, we're a similar system, but I'm not going to compare us to Fosterville. We have to find it first.
Exactly.
And hopefully we're bigger.
Exactly. So, look, I mean, obviously 2021 for you is you've kind of mapped out what you're going to focus on, and I think you've got some basic preliminary stuff to do, and then you're going to get on to drilling. The market doesn't usually react to the preliminary components. They don't necessarily understand the value of it. They understand drilling and drill results. So where's the continuous announcements and stories coming from in the first half then?
Well, that's going to be cranking up. So when we're looking at getting back in drilling, that was planned for Feb. It's probably going to be slightly delayed to early March now, mainly because of the border closures and everything else, which is over east. There's a fairly big, diverse community mining aspect, which runs between South Australia, Victoria and New South Wales. So that's been a little bit more complicated. But obviously, unlike, I guess, in England, Australia seems to be settling back down, and we'll have open borders probably reasonably soon, or controlled borders, and we'll be able to get going again and moving with the rigs, and we don't have any issues there. Plus, the diamond holes will be out shortly, I would imagine, and that's going to give us some things, and then the follow-up from that. The big thing for us is 2020, we're dipping our toes into the water. 2021, we're actually getting ready to really get in there and have a good swim. So it's going to be a good year for us.
Good. Well, like I said, it's a new story to us. So I just wanted to touch base with you, meet you, and understand what the plans are. And please come back on and tell us how you're getting on, because I think investors want to see you tell them what you're going to do, and then do what you tell them you were going to do. Simple as that.
That's what we try to do. Obviously, we've got a lot more planned. There's a lot more in the works coming through. There's preliminary assays and that coming shortly, and we're going to hit those drill rigs pretty quickly and keep that news flowing. So I'm looking forward to a good 2021 from Manhattan.